For centuries, there's been this powerful idea that has totally shaped how we study ourselves, the human sciences. Things like psychology, sociology, politics, they've been looking over at the hard sciences, physics with a kind of envy. They've tried to copy them, really, searching for these grand, universal laws that could explain you and me with the same certainty that physics explains the planets. But after all this time, the results have been, well, kind of scarce. So today, let's dive into this great imitation and ask a big question. Is trying to turn people into physics problems just missing the point entirely? And really, it all boils down to this one question, doesn't it? Are we, our minds, our societies, just incredibly complex machines? Are all our thoughts and feelings and actions just the output of some biological computer that eventually will be able to map out, predict, and even control? Or is there something more? Something that just escapes those neat and tidy laws of mechanics.
So this is the big conflict we're talking about. On one side, you've got the physics model. It's all about finding universal laws to get to certainty. It wants to strip away all our individual quirks to find one simple rule that fits everyone. But then on the other side, you've got the human model, which has to wrestle with all that messy stuff. Our individuality, a ton of uncertainty, and a level of complexity that just refuses to fit into any simple formula. This is the fundamental clash we're going to explore.
All right, let's start at the most personal level, our own minds. This quest to understand consciousness has really been ground zero for the battle between these two models. And the core of the whole problem? It's the relationship between our mind and our body. I mean, we all know this feeling, right? You get anxious, your heart starts pounding, you feel that sense of dread, and your stomach just ties itself in knots. It seems completely obvious that our minds and our bodies are deeply, deeply connected. You'd think this unified view would just be a given. And yet, for centuries, philosophy went in the total opposite direction. Yeah, this idea of a mind that's totally separate from the body, it has a long history. Plato kicked it off by saying the soul and body are two completely distinct things. Then you fast forward to Descartes, right at the dawn of the scientific revolution. He famously called the body a machine, but he said the mind was this separate, non-physical ghost, kind of pulling the levers. You can see where this is going, right? The next logical step came from thinkers like Lemaitre, who just went for it and declared that man is nothing but a machine. The ghost was gone. And even though modern science now totally agrees we're an interconnected unit, that mechanical view has had a huge, lasting influence. And here it is, the idea in its most blunt, most powerful form. Lemaitre wasn't just saying that the mind depends on the brain. No, he was saying that thinking is a purely mechanical, muscular action. Just like walking is a function of your leg muscles, while thinking is a function of your brain muscles. In this view, our entire inner world gets reduced to just a series of physical processes, completely explainable by the laws of matter and motion. Okay, so if the individual can be seen as a machine, what about all of us together, the collective? Let's zoom out to the next level and see how this imitation of the hard sciences played out when it came to studying society itself. Is a nation a machine, or is it something else? So, back during the scientific revolution, you had these two massive, competing ideas pop up. On one hand, you had Thomas Hobbes. He was obsessed with mechanics, and he saw the state as an artificial man, basically a giant machine. He literally asked, what is the heart but a spring, and the nerves but so many strings? But at the very same time, other thinkers like James Harrington were looking to the brand new science of biology. Inspired by the discovery of blood circulation, he argued that society wasn't a machine at all. It was a living body that needed a political anatomy to be understood. And this wasn't just a vague idea. No, they took this biological metaphor super literally. Sociologists started seeing individuals as the cells of this big social body. Institutions like the government or the church, they were the organs, each with a specific job. Social classes were the tissues, communication networks were the nervous system, and the economy? Well, that was the circulatory system, pumping resources all the way through the whole thing. It was this really compelling systemic way to look at the world. And you gotta understand the ambition here was just huge. The idea wasn't simply that society is like an organism. Nope. As Paul von Lilienfeld put it, the idea was that society is a real being. They truly believed it was governed by the exact same forces as any other living thing. The goal was crystal clear: make sociology a branch of biology and give it all the predictive power and authority of a natural science. This drive to find universal laws in human life, well, it reached its most ambitious and ultimately its most dangerous form in the world of politics through the incredibly powerful idea of progress. Progress wasn't just another idea.
For the modern world, it became something more, almost like a secular religion. It was this faith that history wasn't just a bunch of random stuff happening. Instead, it was an unstoppable, straight-line march, moving all of humanity ever upward, towards some state of perfection. It was seen as a law of nature, as certain as gravity.
And the 19th century was the absolute high watermark for this faith. It was an era of just unbelievable scientific and industrial change, and it really felt like anything was possible. This belief in an inevitable upward march powered all the great isms of the time. Liberalism, socialism, nationalism, they were all competing over what that perfect future would look like, but they all shared the one core conviction, that history was on their side, moving unstoppably toward their specific version of utopia. And this is where that faith in necessary progress reveals its incredibly dark side. In this really chilling quote, Friedrich Engels is arguing that the horrors of ancient slavery were actually a historically necessary evil. Why? Because in his view, without them, you don't get Greek civilization, you don't get the Roman Empire, and you don't get the modern world that could finally give birth to socialism. The logic is just terrifying, isn't it? If you believe progress is a fixed law, you can justify any atrocity, past or present, as just a required, painful step on the road to a perfect future. The end justifies any means. And this line of thinking reached its most horrifying conclusion with eugenics. The logic was seductive and terrifyingly simple. See how it works? It starts with a noble idea. Let's improve the human condition. Who could argue with that? Then comes the scientific critique. You know, nature's way, evolution, it's just too slow, it's blind and messy. And finally, you get the leap of absolute hubris. We, with our scientific knowledge, can take control. We can replace nature's blind cruelty with our own benevolent and efficient plan to engineer the perfect human race. It's the ultimate expression of wanting to apply a scientific, controlling model to us. Thankfully, this dream of certainty and control, this religion of progress, well, it couldn't survive the reality that it helped create. A new, much more sober way of thinking had to emerge from the wreckage. You know, the 20th century basically served as one long, brutal takedown of this whole optimistic faith. The mechanized slaughter of 2 world wars, the rise of totalitarian states that killed millions in the name of building a perfect future, and these looming ecological disasters. It all proved that history was not some automatic escalator to heaven. In fact, it seemed our new scientific powers were just as likely to lead us straight to hell. So what's a better way to think about it? The anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss gives us a much, much better metaphor. He says progress isn't a ladder we climb step by step. No, it's more like a game of dice. Every time we roll, we might make a gain in one area, say technology, but we are always in danger of losing in another, like maybe social cohesion or the health of our planet. History isn't just adding up good things. It's a series of really complex trade-offs, full of uncertainty and chance. And so, this is where we're left. If history has no predetermined destination, if there's no guaranteed happy ending written into the laws of the universe, then the path forward isn't something we just discover. It's something we have to choose. The responsibility for whatever comes next, it rests entirely with us, living in a world that's not defined by certainty, but by complexity, by individuality, and by a future that remains completely unwritten.